I promise to fight for the living. I intend to keep that promise.
Hey, you, welcome back to the channel. And so I just wanted to talk about in this video, um, you know, what I feel to be some disappointments about Game of Thrones in season 8 so far. And also, we're going to talk about as well some disappointments in my other favorite show, American Gods season 2. So, for those of you who watch the channel, you know that most of the channel is about passive income, cryptocurrency, things like that. We did start off a great degree with doing a lot of some of my hobbies, which is reviewing cinema, television shows. And this happens to be two of my favorites. Game of Thrones and American Gods, which are two as well as being great television shows, great literary pieces of work. Um, and so these books, I mean, they're just so well written that making these things into movie adaptions or television shows is just it's just creates a gold mine in that area. So let's talk about some of my disappointments. What's happened, with Game of Thrones so far with episode 1. And I just want to say first too that um, I when I started reviewing television shows and movies, I tried to only do the ones I liked because I don't want to waste you guys' time. And I know some reviewers they can do like movies they don't like, and they could do. I like to. I just feel like I can give you guys so much more if I like the source material. So um Game of Thrones. We're gonna start with that. Some of again favorite books, favorite television show, all of that. But a lot of us were a bit uh, concerned, disappointed, didn't really like a lot of things that happened in the first episode of Game of Thrones season 8. And I know a lot of people might say, well, this is just the first episode, but that worked well the other seasons. But we're at the Super Bowl here now with Game of Thrones, and a lot of the uh, a lot of things have to get done this season. And the episode was only 54 minutes long. I could be wrong, but I thought they were going to all be like an hour and a half long. These are just regular episodes, it looks like, in length. So that's not good for so much of a story to be told. Am I correct that there's only 6 episodes, or is it 8 episodes? I'm not sure about that. I heard it was like 6 episodes. Maybe it's 8. I hope it's at least 8. Um, but a lot has to get done. Now, one good thing that's been working well with Game of Thrones has been uh, throughout the episode. I guess this is was one of the good things I could mention was that in the episode, um, it moved really fast. Like everybody got their information and news. Like Jon Snow finds out he's Aegon the Sixth. In this episode, he learns to ride a dragon in this episode, and I think my problem already with all of this is that I think it would have been better had this season been longer episodes, right, or at least regular length episodes, and basically, if you got to cut down some of that budget, a lot of what drove Game of Thrones from the beginning was the dialogue, right, and the drama, And I always kind of looked at the White Walkers and all the wars and battle as kind of backdrop, right? And we were all along all these seasons with Game of Thrones with the intense drama that it had to offer, right? And the great acting. Now, I don't understand how the salaries are negotiated with Game of Thrones yet, so I don't know if maybe now these actors that they become so popular now that their contracts are going to demand more money or something like that. I'm not sure about all those details. I didn't hear a big problem with people complaining about their pay, but I would have much rather have us be able to get the full impact of these of all of these things now coming into development, and us under these characters learning more about what's going on with the Game of Thrones in longer episodes. I think I would have liked to see that better, and if that meant like cutting out a lot of CGI and dragon riding, and I would say go for that, because I think that's what's been the driving factor with Game of Thrones. I remember trying to get, like, especially like the first two seasons, I remember telling people to get into Game of Thrones, check it out, watch it out. And I remember people coming back to me with like, well, they just kind of stand around and talk, the entire time. And later people began to understand that that was what the show was all about. That these were real characters, real people that were set in a fictional world of dragons and mythologies. However, their psychological approach, to these things were very much reminiscent to our real worlds, right? So that's what I felt made Game of Thrones so great. Now, we get the dragon riding with Jon Snow. It's no build up to that. It kind of reminded me of what we got with how they killed Littlefinger. I felt that was rushed, and this was rushed as well. So I feel like they're cramming. They're going to be cramming like this to get things moved along. And that's a big problem for a production like Game of Thrones to do something, everything that's led up to this point, to kind of just cram it in at the end. And that's what it's feeling like what's happening, because so much has to go down that no matter how they do this, I think it's going to feel rushed, right? And so that's some concerns there. Jon just kind of jumped on the dragon and start riding it. And that was kind of the end of all of that. And so, a lot of people concerned about what's going to happen with Game of Thrones. Another big concern is they brought back, as I understand, a lot of the great directors from the greatest episodes on many of these episodes in the final season here. And I had expected nothing less almost than perfection from these guys, and season one, just episode one, didn't get there for me. And again, the problem with that is, as before in the prior seasons, where we could they can have some hit and misses there with the episodes like they've done on every season. This is the season that they can't do it, that we don't need them to do that. And so maybe the next episode is going to be great. Hopefully it's going to make up for a lot of this, because they have to, like, it's not much time left. They got to go wrap up all this stuff. But I just think that's a shame. And I'm very surprised that it being such a high quality product and taking so long to bring us season 8, that our first episode just felt so disappointing to me. And so, hopefully it's going to get better in this next episode. Now, interesting enough, the most interesting person to me right now, the part that's holding me the most with Game of Thrones is Bran, right? The Bran story, him, as the three-eyed raven. And I've done some prediction videos about who Bran is. You can subscribe to the channel and you can look at, exactly, who I think Bran is. But, another hint there is when him and Jon first has their encounter, Bran's making it clear that, hey, I'm not even really human, I'm not any of that. I'm really not Bran, right? And go back to the Mirror scene where he tells Mirror Bran died back, where she says, you died back in that cave, right? So I think this is literally not brand, right? I don't think it's just an idea of he is uh um he is brand and he's learned something new. I think what he's learned is that he's been many people throughout history, or he's been this force that's always been a pre-existent a brand in a sense. But we'll get to see what goes on with that. So tell me, guys, what you think. Are you liking this season so far, or did you like episode one? There were some parts to episode one that I did like. Particularly with Samuel Tarly, his reaction to Daenerys and and all those things. Of course, Arya's meeting with John. Um, and those parts of it, I thought they did well. Again, I still didn't like how quick and easy Sam just kind of walked up and said, "You're it," and it wasn't that many questions. But I can only say that maybe Jon Snow always kind of expected something like that, or suspected something like that, right? He always in the back of his mind knew it was something special about him. Maybe he didn't know what it was, so maybe he was able to really come to terms with that, because he comes to terms with that real quick. I would have thought maybe he would have fell down on the ground or stumbled or something with such big news. But again, it could also be that they got to move and push this along, right?
There are new gods growing in America.
I can't believe
And they want to destroy us. War's a coming, Shadow. I have a big role for you.
So, similar to what's happening with Game of Thrones going into their final season, American Gods going into its second season, face similar problems and similar concerns. And that is that these are two basically great novels, books that have kind of steered a great deal off course from the books, right? With Game of Thrones, of course, they're ahead of the book, so they no longer have the great storytelling of George R. R. Martin to guide them. And with American Gods, we have lost some of our greatest people involved with the show, right? So writers and what have you. And at first, I didn't really notice it because the acting of the characters is so good. Ian McShane and many others that I didn't quite notice it at first. And it seemed to be muscling through, but it was only after a few episodes after that I start to realize like there is something missing a great deal, from American Gods that we don't have in season 2 that we had in season 1. And American Gods, again, is in a kind of similar situation where they've went, a bit off of the books a great deal and don't have that great writing department that they had from season 1, and we can tell, we can see that in the stories itself. Now the stories have been interesting. I want to just say between these shows are on a caliber so far above what you get in your regular television programming that even in my disappointment with it so far, what I've seen in comparison, these shows are still light years ahead of pretty much any TV show you're going to see, right? So even on its worst episode, it's still 100 times better than the average television show, right? So I want to be clear about that. And so I'm still going to drop in from time to time and give reviews on this. But there is definitely something wrong with American Gods. So many of us don't really know where the story is going anymore. We thought that it was going to the war and the war with the gods, and that this is going to be kind of a progression story going to that. But this seems a lot more off base than it's been prior to this within the story. Now the last episode we got, which had to do with Thor, Odin's son, right? The great Donar, I believe that was his Thor's. I think it's supposed to be Thor's real name or something, right? I'm not great in Nordic mythology, but yeah, that's how I understood it. That episode I thought was probably the best of them. And I guess the one before prior to that, with the character who was known as I believe it was Turner. He was lynched and killed viciously by a racist crowd in racist America. Um, and Mr. Nancy's uh, uh, great concern with the direction of what Black America was going to be like. And I like that episode. Those were two great in this one. But the ones prior to that, they were just very off and weird to me. And yeah, it's causing a great deal of concern. These shows are definitely missing something that they didn't have before, right? And so hopefully it's going to get better. The good thing is usually as they go up in seasons, they do get better. I think American Gods is gonna do that. And American Gods, the great thing about American Gods is it potentially has 3 more seasons to get things right. And I do think they're gonna get better at it. Unfortunately, Game of Thrones doesn't, but Game of Thrones can still make up for it in these few remaining episodes. And I think this next one may be a big improvement, right? Because it was the first episode. Maybe they just want to throw a pitch at us on that one, and maybe the next few are gonna really make up for it because they are really moving fast. So it's not much left to discover, right? Except just fight, you know, and react, right? And so I guess too my concern with that is we're not gonna get the really these characters aren't gonna really have enough time to be able to relate to the audience or to each other on this show because I think everything after this point is going to be reactionary, right? And so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I've been a bit disappointed, guys, and kind of confusing to get my thoughts out. Something I normally don't have a problem with, but we'll see, and hopefully I'll be able to come to you and review some better episodes. But just want to check in as I'm not any longer doing an episode by episode review. So I'm going to try to come in and try to pick some great episodes and do those specifically before everything is all said and done. And maybe we can get some good insight into those videos. But just wanted to check in, tell you guys a little bit how I felt about this. But that's it for this video, guys. If you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and until next time, take care.